Good evening and welcome to the Kappa Kappa Gamma Alumni Engagement Strategies webinar. My name is Beth McAllister and I am the Chapter Council Advisor at Zeta Omega Chapter, University of Waterloo, and I will be your technical producer and moderator this evening. The webinar this evening will be presented by Craig Little, who is the Director of Alumni Societies at Ohio State University. He is in his 20th year next month in his position. Let's see here. Before we start our presentation, let's take a moment to ensure that everyone is ready and familiar with the webinar control panel. On the right side of your screen, you will see the attendee control panel, and on the left is the webinar viewer window. This viewer window will display the presenter's screen when the webinar begins. The control panel can be minimized or expanded by clicking on the horizontal double arrow button in the upper left corner. Minimizing the panel will allow you to have a better view of the presentation. There's a few features of the control panel that you should know about. The first one is the questions pane. To submit a question, type it into the question box. These may be questions related to the presentation or technical questions related to the GoToWebinar system. You may also be asked by the presenter to type ideas or responses here as part of an exercise during the webinar. So just to test this out, I'd love if our attendees could please quickly type into the questions pane where they are listening to us from. All right, so we have got Wyoming, Nebraska, Florida, Omaha, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Alabama, Houston, Pittsburgh, Nevada. Oh my goodness, we have ladies from all over. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us this evening. During the webinar, you are also going to be asked to respond to a polling question or a survey. Please take the time to participate as your input and ideas are very valuable to the group. Try to stay attentive and interact as much as possible during the webinar. The quality of your experience depends on your attention and participation, so please try to avoid distractions like responding to email, checking Facebook or other social media, or working on other tasks at your computer. If you need to step away for a moment, do not close the GoToWebinar window, as you will be required to log in again if you wish to rejoin the session. If you experience problems with your audio, one possible solution is to use the conference call number and listen to the presentation using your phone. Click the Use Telephone option in the audio pane of your control panel to view the conference call number. This webinar is being recorded and the online archive will be available to view on the Kappa website and the Kappa YouTube channel in approximately 2 weeks. All right, so now I would like to hand over the presentation to Craig.
Beth, thank you so much. And everybody, welcome. Good evening. Coming to you live from Columbus, Ohio. I am extremely excited to have this opportunity to share with you some strategies as it relates to alumni engagement. Had a great opportunity to meet with some of your national volunteers who work with alumni programming throughout the country back in January. And I think the conversations that we started there is really leading to some great things. So this is kind of new for me, so bear with me. And as we go through this presentation, want to share with you kind of what we're going to be looking at tonight. The open discussion about engagement, we're actually going to take advantage of some of the polling questions that I created to just kind of see how you react to engagement from your alma mater and how that translates to Kappa. We're going to talk about our audience. Who are we reaching? Who's our target? What do we know about our alumni base and the data that can be within our fingertips? We're going to take a look at programming. When we talk about alumni engagement, there's a variety of ways that we consider alums to be engaged. I'm going to share with you some programs that we're doing at Ohio State. And what I would say is please look at these programs as, okay, I like the concept. Now how do I make it fit my region, or how do I make it fit my city? From that kind of standpoint. I'd actually like to find out, and Beth, if you can read back to me, tell me if you are a chapter volunteer or if you are a alumni group volunteer, so I can have a kind of a guess of what type of volunteers we're working with tonight.
All right, here we go. So we've got Mindy as a chapter volunteer, Laura is an Alumni Association president, Nancy is an alumna volunteer, Maria is both, Elena is a chapter advisor, Mary is an alumni volunteer, and Erica is an alumni. Oh my goodness gracious, here we go. Samantha is an Alumni Association president and an academic excellence specialist. Kathy is the president of her Alumni Association. Leah is both a chapter and alumni volunteer, and Marcia is a alumni group volunteer.
Okay, good. So we've got a nice mix, especially some of those of you working with the chapter. Some of the programming ideas are things that the chapter could also then co-sponsor with the alums in the area. And last but not least, we'll talk about the volunteer itself and how we steward our volunteers. Sometimes I don't think we do a good job of thanking and recognizing volunteers, so we're going to talk about that. Of course, we always have some volunteers we need to sunset, and we'll talk about some strategies for that as well. So let's take it. I'm going to consider this open discussion, and we're going to use a couple of the polling questions. But I want you to think about, and just write this down at your desk or your table or wherever you're watching but how does your alma mater engage you? And then more importantly, what do you value about that engagement? So I think, Beth, if we can put up polling question number 1.
For sure. So I'm going to launch that right now. So if you can all just take a quick second to vote for one of the options here that are on your screen. I'm going to give you about a minute or so to do that. So just a few more seconds, ladies. Oh, we're almost at 100%, so perfect. Excellent. So everybody's voted. I'm going to close the poll now. And I'm going to share the results with us here. So how do you like to receive information from your alma mater? Our polling results say 50% say something in the mail, and another 50% say email, and 0% say via text message.
That's fascinating information, because one of the things we're seeing from our young alums is they prefer to receive information via text and email, nothing in the mail, because they don't pay attention to it, is what we've been told from our young alums. So the text messaging of getting quick blurbs or links to information about their alma mater is becoming very popular with our younger audience. When we think about that communication in terms of how do you react to what you receive, I'm going to go to the second question. Beth, if you'll pull that up for us. And I'll explain the rationalization of why I'm asking the question that I'm asking. So the question is, when your alma mater contacts you by phone, your first reaction is? Beth, are we there?
We are almost there. We've got 90% voted.
Got it. Okay, I'm sorry. I was panicking. I thought I lost you all.
Yep, we're still here.
Okay.
Give you another few seconds, ladies, to vote. All right, I'm going to close the poll now. So it looks like our results here, Craig, we've got 19% say, I tell them I'm busy and I don't have time to talk. 50% say, I listen politely and then tell them I already gave. 19%, I listen to the person calling to hear the information. 13%, I'm excited that they've reached out to me. And no one, because they're all lovely Kappas, just hangs up.
Fantastic. Well, one of the things I wanted to bring that to your attention is the same, that how would you react when Kappa contacts you? And I think for those of you in the positions that you're in, you need to be thinking about, well, how do they react when they receive information from their alma mater? Is that reaction going to be the same from Kappa, if it comes from Kappa? And so strategically thinking about what is mailed, what is sent, and how you engage is very important, that there's such a correlation between what's happening at a university or a college as it is within your organization. So thank you all so much for sharing that feedback and being honest as well, because I think a lot of times we have found recently in just reaching out to alumni to just ask them, what do they think about, how we're doing with programming? What would they like to see? And taking advantage of surveys, excuse me, is that 19% of you who said, I'm just thrilled that they reached out to us. Because I think sometimes alums feel like all we care about is, have you given? Show me the money, from what a lot of folks will say. And that's not what we're all concerned about. We do want alums to be engaged in multiple ways and opportunities. So let's talk about engagement. And ask yourself, as you see this list of, have you liked the Kappa Facebook page? Do you follow Kappa on Twitter? Have you worn something with Kappa on it? These are all points of engagement. And I think that's what sometimes it's hard to collect the data to indicate that, but clearly we can tell by the number of people following on Twitter or Facebook what kind of engagement we have. We obviously know all of you who volunteer, you are engaged, and we're going to talk about in a little bit, about the audience that we really are trying to reach, and that's that middle ground group that doesn't volunteer and maybe comes to an event but is on the edge of teetering to becoming more active, and how do we help them? And I think sometimes when people ask to be involved and engaged, they think about, oh, well, I just don't have the time. But do you have time to read the magazine? Absolutely. Do you have time to participate in one community service event a year? Absolutely. We need to find things that will resonate with your members to be able to be engaged back to Kappa and to the chapter and to the alumni groups. So again, these are all different ways of types of engagement that we also look at the university level. Also making sure that I want to point out how important it is to educate undergraduates especially, but then alums as well, about updating your contact information. A lot of times we have seen alums move and they think to call their university alumni association, but they don't think to call Kappa headquarters to say, hey, by the way, I'm moving and here's my new address. So whether there's places on your websites or on your Facebook page, that constant reminder of, never lose touch with Kappa, make sure that you always update your contact information. I probably am preaching to the choir because you all are taking the time this evening to participate, and you also are volunteering. But let's talk about the average member. Think about the folks who in your chapters complained about having to do certain things, usually maybe have been late with their dues, always showed up for the parties because that was the fun stuff, but when it came to volunteering or working, it was hard to find them. But there's still those individuals who cherish their memories of their 4 or 5 years while they're in school. How do we reach out to them? And then more importantly, what are we teaching while we have the undergraduates' attention? What kind of programs are you bringing to them? One of my favorite programs that a lot of schools do is called Dinner with 12 Strangers. So arranging a networking opportunity for 6 alums to have dinner with 6 current undergraduates. You can base this on profession. You can base it on the area, like inviting alums to come from their similar hometowns, if you have the ability to bring people in. And then having questions about, how has the Kappa experience helped you as an alum? Like, what things did you learn by being involved as a chapter officer that has parlayed into job security, and that you are able to utilize the skills that you acquired. Undergrads want to know how to make this transferable into the real world. And so looking at programs that the alums can engage with the undergrads is important, but also from the very moment they start, from that first year, to have alums come in and talk about that this is for a lifetime. This is not just something that you're a part of for 4 years. And so what opportunities are we taking to help educate the undergrads of the importance? And then ask ourselves, who's modeling the way? in terms of how many alums can you get back to participate in activities? Do they have that influence? And how do we make sure that undergrads don't run the other direction? I always loved hearing undergrads say the one event they dreaded the most was Founders Day because they had to be nice to the old people. And that always got a chuckle because I was like, but you have no idea what door that might open. I mean, especially now, I mean, compared to 30 years ago, but now there, I mean, so many successful women in the business world and in technology and have opportunities to open the door for internships and job opportunities. And so the undergrads need to understand that this is that whole process of networking. And so we've got some great opportunities to really handle some engagement. But when we talk about modeling the way, we also have to say, what kind of message do we send? Now, if you all will take a look at this screenshot of your website, the first thing I'm looking for is where's the link or the click that says alumni? It's not right out in front because all we're doing is focusing on the undergraduates. And one of the things I think, and I'm a member of Phi Kappa Tau, and I worked at our national headquarters, and we put all our money, resource, and staffing into a small population of the overall population. We have all the staff working with our undergraduates and collegiates, and then we're lucky if we have one staff member working on alumni relations and alumni engagement, and then we all wonder why no one's engaged. So I think the thing, I will give props to Kappa because they're in the process of creating a job description for an alumni relations coordinator, and that is a huge step moving forward. And I hope more national and international headquarters take that next step. But I think if you look at your population and you look at, if you had an alumni base of 80,000 people at a small university or college, how many staff members would they have working with that alumni base? And that really is what we need to start doing at the Greek level if we want to see an increased engagement of alums. And we do know increased alumni engagement does lead to giving. And obviously we want to continue to raise scholarships for our undergraduates. We want to be able to continue to provide educational programming through those fundraising efforts. But before you can ask anybody to give, you have to make sure they're engaged. So again, we would say, to the leadership at Kappa, how do we make sure alums are clear out front versus, just the click to the foundation? Because when people see foundation, all they think about is, oh, that's where I go to give my money. It doesn't scream or resonate what are my opportunities to be involved with other alums. So I'll take a pause there and see if there are any questions before we move on to the next screen.
I don't have any questions pending at the moment.
Great, thank you, Beth. So how important is alumni engagement to you? And so I guess the first question is, what is the strategic plan that Kappa has established? One of the things here at Ohio State recently, we moved from an independent association into the advancement model. And within that, we set 6 very progressive goals as it related to the strategic plan. And everything that we as a staff did or are doing has to relate back to part of those goals. So the first step is, what does Kappa have as a strategic plan as it relates to alumni relations? And then all of you need to figure out, okay, how do we help enhance those goals? How do your particular goals feed into the strategic plan of Kappa? And when we talk about, well, why do your goals matter to the bigger picture? Well, because I look at it from this standpoint. We have geographical clubs and we have alumni societies, which are constituent-based groups, 150 in total. And all these folks are doing what we are doing at the national level, and that is they're planning events, they're raising scholarship dollars, they're participating in community service projects in their cities or in around the Columbus area. And what they're doing is they're carrying the flag for Ohio State. You want your alums to be doing the same thing of carrying the Kappa flag in all these different areas, so not just where you're centrally located. So that's why you guys taking the time, your alumni associations really saying, okay, over the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to focus on A, B, and C. I have an alumni society of folks who used to live in a residence hall that was inside our stadium, And in short, they came up with 2 goals for the next 2 years. And it dealt with, one was re-engaging their young alumni, and they had goals that are action steps to take to get to that. And the second was to re-engage those who used to be engaged. So they've been keeping track of who's been attending events and so forth, and where they've seen the drop-off, they're re-engaging them, inviting them back. So those all fit into our overall engagement plan of getting more alums, what we call unique attendees. So again, it's important that we're all working together. But we also have to understand that the needs of our alums are completely different. So when we talk about the alumni life cycle, we talk about programming that would cover all 4 areas, and then programming that hits just the certain areas that you see up on the screen.
Sorry, Craig.
One of the yes.
Before you go into your next slide, I've got a few questions that have popped up here.
Hey, I love that. Okay.
So first one I have is from Maria. She says, can you give an example of an organization that does alumni engagement well on their online resources?
A specific alumni, one of our groups, or an alumni association?
I think it just says an example of an organization. So something maybe that you can direct us to take a look at.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have the ability, I would say, like, right now, our Black Alumni Society is doing fantastic things. So if you go to blacksociety.alumni.osu.edu, you will see a variety of programs that they're currently participating in doing, and especially reaching out to young alums. They created a online, basically, Young Alumni Award recognizing outstanding achievement for alums under the age of 40. And because I oversee this group, I get copied on all the emails, and I've been impressed with the large volume of nominations that alums have been submitting. They also have been doing a lot of partnership with other groups. So though based in Columbus, they have a very active alumni volunteer in the D.C. area who's partnering with our D.C. Alumni Club. So that's one of our local groups, our alumni societies, that is doing some great programming.
Can you give that
I'm going to share
just one more time?
Yeah, blacksociety.alumni.osu.edu.
Thank you. I have another question here from Kathy. She says, how do you get older alumni to feel comfortable engaging with young alumni and chapter members while at a Founders Day event?
Well, my suggestion is try to group the attendees by major, because I think one of the things that older alums love to hear what's going on now. So if you have somebody that was an education major 40 years ago, sitting next to a current undergrad who's a current education major and allowing them to share stories, I think that's really important. And I think that, having questions at the table, like conversation starters, I would even encourage you to have like a table captain that may pose a question to everybody. Sometimes even having a small reception ahead of time, and also, basically doing it like a recruiting event is something. Or a couple of our groups have been doing speed networking. So maybe you do a networking event prior to the lunch where they have a chance to meet each other, learn very quick facts about someone before moving on to the next person, and then, hey, I really enjoyed hearing stories about you. Let's go sit at this table together and continue on our conversation. That would be a suggestion I would have.
That's fantastic. Just one more of a comment, but maybe we'll spur some discussion from you, Craig, is from Laura. She comments that the website, the photograph on the front of our website shows no diversity. So she thinks that we need to think about that as well. And she wants to compliment that Kappa is having a long-range planning commission to study this throughout our fraternity.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for bringing that up, because I was going to say something and I chose not to. One of the things I think undergraduates especially, if they don't see themselves in the photos or in the boards or the alums, then they don't feel like there's a place for them. So absolutely, from everything that you put out there, you have to show inclusiveness. Otherwise, again, you will not have them engaged as alums as they go down this alumni life cycle. So thank you so much for bringing that up.
That's all that I have for right now.
Okay, great. So again, this is just a reference in terms of the alumni life cycle and knowing the different needs of our alums. One of the programs we started doing to gear towards our second, the Gen Xers, the 32 to 42, we have a fun event now on home football games called Football Friday Night here at the Alumni House. It's free. I have never seen so many kids running around our building and our outdoor space. We partner with the Columbus Zoo to bring in animals. We bring in our cheerleaders and our mascot. Former football players come in and talk about the details of the game the next night. But again, the concept, it's free. It's something that's encouraged to bring the kids. So when you look at programming, you want to be thinking about the same things in terms of, well, where are they in their career? What are they currently dealing with? When you look at our young grads, what are some of the important things that they need? Seminars on how to buy your first house, how to plan for retirement, taking advantage of alums who are financial planners and coming back and giving these presentations. So again, really looking at how do we program for individuals, and then how do we program across the board. When we look at we just started a new program, and timing is also the other key. You never have an event late at night and invite your old alums to it because they're afraid of driving at night. They're more prone to wanting to come to events at the lunchtime. So again, looking at different things, but just putting it in perspective and in scope. But if you're going to have programs, there has to be a purpose behind the program. So I want to share with you kind of this philosophy. If you cannot promise one of these 6 things that you see on the screen for an event that you're going to host, then I want you to rethink it and ask yourself, okay, how do we get one of these things to be a promise that we can promise to the event attendees? So a lot of folks will like if it's a network event that might advance my career, lifelong learning. We encourage our groups. We consider beer tastings and wine tastings lifelong learning. You're learning something about the art of making wines or how to pair a wine, and with that, you're having fun. People that they care about, especially when we look at reunions. Are you taking advantage of your website to post who's attending? Sometimes people are reluctant to come back to an event because they're afraid there's not going to be anybody they know. So is there a way that you can have a space where those things are shown? Am I making a difference for Kappa, my alma mater, or my community? We see high numbers of young alums participating in community service projects because that's all they've known. They've been required to do that in high school and middle school, and so it continues. And they love giving back from that standpoint. So again, these are just some things to say to yourself, okay, as we go to plan an event, let's keep in mind what can we promise our attendees. The next step that you have to know, though, is you have to know your audience. There are great tools out there, such as SurveyMonkey, that allows you to do quick surveys, finding out what kind of programs your alums would attend, what day of the week is a good day that works better in their schedule, vice versa. What if there's a fee to it? What are they willing to pay? Getting that information about the alums in your area is going to be very important to you as you plan. And then also think about, what's your competition? What else are your members joining and participating in that's taking them away from the opportunity to be involved with Kappa? Who are you keeping track of? Your past officers? Are you keeping track of those who have volunteered in other areas? So you know that there are people that you can always turn to. We just recently started what we call an engagement score for our alums, so that it helps determine who's not engaged with Ohio State to who is extremely engaged. And it's based on attending events, giving, relationships, how many degrees do they have, how many years in a row have they given. You get points for all of this. It's helping us scale back. Instead of sending an email to 180,000 alums living in Columbus to get 50 to come to an event, we're now targeting it to a group of folks who most likely might attend that event, So now maybe we're only sending 5,000 emails instead of 180,000 to a targeted audience. When we talked about earlier about how do you like to receive the information, sometimes you get so inundated in your email box with emails from your alma mater, from Kappa, from other sources, that you just end up deleting it. There's a lot of times I've always said to somebody, for 1 month, put into a file every email you got from your university, or in this case from Kappa, to see how often they're contacting you. Because we have people automatically saying, take me off this list, not realizing that we can't send them anything. So then they're missing information from their college, or they're missing information from their special interest group. So it's important that you watch the frequency and the number of times that you're communicating with your alumni base. Okay, no questions, moving on. So again, knowing your data, and working with your national office to get a lot of this information. One of the things, for example, if you were an alumni association in a large metro city and you wanted to do a young alumni networking event, perhaps finding out, for example, in the Columbus area, the downtown zip codes are 43201 and 43215. So we may only send an invitation to a networking event at one of the local breweries within that area, because we know that they're traveling from home, they're coming to their apartment or home, and then they're walking to the events. And so they're going to the networking event, they get 2 drink tickets, the event's an hour and a half, and then they're walking back home. So we're bringing the program to where they're located. Well, the only way we know that is if we're taking advantage of the information that we have in our database. So again, it's about location, age, what information is Kappa keeping in terms of past event attendees, or what are you keeping in your records so that you know who to get back to. I do believe it is important on a yearly basis to at least get something in their hands versus regular mail. Not everything should always be electronic. Even if it's a postcard highlighting your top 3 signature events and the dates that they're going to take place, as a kind of a, hey, post this up on your refrigerator, and don't forget this information will be coming to you at a later date. I think it's important to have that connection. So again, know the data that you have.
Craig, we just have
within that data. Oh yeah, I love questions.
Question from Kathy. How many times do you need to survey to get the base stats to then plan from?
We go with the notion of trying to survey a large audience once every 2 years. Your targeted areas, I think once a year is a great way of really, because a lot of things change in someone's lives, and all of a sudden, maybe they have more time to attend something, so they might respond to it. But the key thing is no more than 5 to 7 questions, and keep it short and sweet. The other thing that we have found to be successful for groups is some sort of incentive on the survey. So, for example, I just had a group send out a survey to their young alumni base, and everyone who responds by October 7th is eligible to receive a $50 gift card to a local store here in Columbus. So again, that seems to drive people's participation. So that's what I would suggest is the best practice as it relates to surveying.
Fantastic. That's all the questions I have for right now.
Okay. So again, here are just some other areas in terms of how to segment the audience. I've always felt that at the national level, we've missed out on engaging past volunteers, staff members, board members by creating a special email listserv with a quarterly update on things that are happening at the national level. Where where's the chapters? Where are we colonizing? What's the latest GPA average of the groups? What are the alumni organizations in the areas doing? So again, think about what are some of your segmented audiences that you might want to start that special e-newsletter for to keep them engaged. I think the other thing is just excuse me, getting the information from the national office to find out how else you might slice and dice the information that you have. We are becoming more and more aware of what we have. To give you an example, we discovered that 90% of our alumni base lives in 19 states in the District of Columbia. And so within that, we've decided then to say that's where we're going to put our energy. And we hired 5 young staff members to serve as regional engagement officers working with our alumni clubs in those specific metro cities and states to really engage our alums outside of Columbus. I think that's the other thing, and I'm so proud of those of you who are volunteering in alumni associations to try to bring alums together in those areas. It's such a great networking. I've always felt the other thing that we as Greek members have an advantage. We obviously have our alumni, our alma mater alumni groups to participate in, but then we also have, our own Greek organizations. And if that isn't being used in recruitment, it should be, because again, it's all about networking and opportunities, and that's something that someone who goes to a university that's not Greek does not have that advantage. The other thing in terms of promotion then that I want you to think about is how do you promote and evaluate? Communication plan. One of the things that we have found as you email and as invitation to young alums, you have to send it to them 3 times before they will finally react to it or take action. And the harsh reality is they're waiting to see what other invitations to things that they may have come up on that night. And if 2 days out they still have no plans, then they tend to register for some of our networking events. So what is your communication plan? Is it 6 weeks out before the event that you send that first plan? What's the reminder email? What are your different mediums? One of the things that we're finding is taking out ads on Facebook is very inexpensive, and it will boost your attendance, because what Facebook is doing, every time you promote an event on Facebook, it doesn't pop up in everyone's news feeds. When you take out an ad to help promote that event, all of a sudden, wow, look at that, it's showing up in a lot more feeds. So again, there's some very inexpensive tools out there to help you with that. And then I want to make sure, if you're doing a program, please evaluate the program to get the feedback you need. And I want you to use this source called the Net Promoter Score. And you see the link in the presentation that will take you to learn more. But in short, at the conclusion of your event the next day, you send a simple email saying, thank you for attending. It was great to see you. Please take a few moments to provide us with some important feedback, and you will send this survey using 2 questions. Question number 1 is on a 0 to 10 scale. How likely would you recommend this event to another Kappa? Question number 2, why did you give us the score you did? And what we're looking for are the individuals who score you a 9 or 10. They are considered promoters. Anyone who scores you 0 to 6 is considered a detractor, and those are the folks that you want to reach out to and say, oh, I'm so sorry you had a bad experience. What can you tell us about it that you weren't happy about? How can we fix it the next time? And again, in this case, you're really showing that you do care about the individual's concerns and feedback. Now, if they're just complaining about the food, or they thought it was too far to walk from where the parking lot was for the event, a lot of things are out of your control. But if there are things within your control, this gives you the opportunity to reach out to them and have that discussion. So again, you can learn more about the Net Promoter Score. Businesses worldwide use this. If any of you have ever traveled an airline or stayed at a hotel, you most likely have gotten a survey from them asking you 2 simple questions, and those are the questions that they're asking. Within the business industry, anything over 30% is considered successful of a Net Promoter Score, but we at Ohio State, like, our goal for our programs is at 65% or higher is our goal. You end up subtracting the percentage of detractors from the percentage of promoters to get your score. Anyone that scores you a 7 or 8 is considered neutral, and you don't count that part within the evaluation. But again, the calculation is there on the website. I now want to share with you, unless there's any questions on Net Promoter Score.
Nope, we have no questions right now.
Oh, good. Okay. You said no questions?
None right now.
Okay, great. All right, so diversifying your programs. Would someone like to share with us a successful program that you have hosted in one of these categories? And we'll give a minute to see if anybody pops up.
We
We
have
tell if anybody's
we've got Elena who's helped plan a Kappa reunion a few years ago.
okay. And Elena, what made it successful?
We'll wait. Elena will get back to us, but we've got Kathy saying that they did a student alumni retention and fundraising event.
Okay,
Maria did a sporting event tailgate party.
great.
They combined their holiday tea with a reading is fundamental event.
Oh, great.
Nancy says her alumni association has an annual home tour and holiday luncheon alternating every other year, which is always successful and is a fundraiser for local charities in the area. Nicole
Wonderful.
says, when I handled programming for the DC Alumni Association, we would set up a private museum tour at the Smithsonian for exhibit tours that weren't open to the general public, but free.
Oh, can we hold on that one? That is one of those things. You're offering something they can't get somewhere else, and that's fantastic. So that's a great program. Nice job.
Great job, Nicole. Samantha has put in that they do a community service event with the undergraduate chapter and the alumni at the food bank.
Okay, great. So look at, again, some great programs and great ideas that are coming along. These are the areas of programming. Matter of fact, I believe, Beth, we have another poll that we can use.
For sure.
And I believe it's the one where it says which ones would they be interested in attending.
All right, I've
got
that one here. So let's launch that poll. So this is a poll asking you what type of alumni program you would like to attend.
And there's they can pick multiple answers.
Oh, you can pick multiple answers this time, ladies. All right, we've got 76%, 88% voted. So we're just about there. Let's give you another couple of seconds for those last few ladies. All right, I'm going to close the poll now. And here we go with our results. So 81% would like a community service project, 88% would like social gathering or networking event, 75% would like a lifelong learning program, 88% would like a Founders Day banquet, and 31% would like family-friendly programming.
All right. Well, that either is indication of the audience we have participating, and many of you no longer maybe are empty nesters or don't have children, or it's just not a priority. So interesting there, but high percentage in a lot of those other activities, which is great. And I really, really appreciate you participating in that. I think, again, diversifying your program, but also what is your signature event? And so the program that was the holiday and home tour and alternating years, having something that everybody knows that, oh, it's always this time of year. For example, our marching band has the opportunity to come back for a reunion weekend. It's always one of the first 2 games of the season at home. They know that. Their alumni base knows that. That's their signature event. Our College of Nursing has a wine tasting fundraising that always takes place in July. That is a signature event. So be thinking about what is your 1 or 2 signature events that you know is successful, it's popular, and it's consistent in when it takes place. And then you want to sprinkle in, when I say, different types of programs. And to give you an idea, I want to share with you all the branded programmings that we have recently launched in the last 2 years at Ohio State. Now, I'm very fortunate, and again, we have 540,000 living alumni. We have a large staff here at the Alumni Association planning these things, but everything is branded and it's got a purpose. So, our Buckeye Smart program is geared towards those alums 50 and older. They're held from noon to 1:30. It's $10. They get a box lunch, and we have a variety of topics that highlight the great things that are happening at Ohio State. Family fun days. We did a swim party at our rec center. the paint and pour, which is very popular with young alums right now, where you go into an art studio or an event space, the artist has already sketched out the painting on the canvas. Your participants show up, they drink some wine, and literally the artist helps them paint these incredible, canvases. Lots of fun, great, to bring your friends together in a place. So when you look at some of these things, you look at, okay, how can we kind of create, each of these is targeted to a certain area. Obviously, we hear all the time, I'm not a football fan. I want to go to something else. And so our Buckeyes and Broadway program is very hugely successful. We have receptions either before or after the show. Every now and then we get an opportunity to have a talk with the cast at the conclusion of the show. Again, we're offering things that they can't get by just going to the show by themselves on their own. So again, that's extremely important. The other things that I think are really kind of fun that we're seeing taking off, the Scarlet and Grapes is our wine tasting. Buckeyes Who Brunch is geared towards our young alums. I mean, I could see a Kappa's Who Brunch program taking off in a lot of your different cities because, again, who doesn't love brunch? And you keep it simple. You work with the local restaurant, and you can have a lot of fun. Buckeyes After Work is our networking event. And, I think the importance here I'm sharing with you about the branding is that if you have a consistent message, someone may not be able to come this time, but they'll see that invitation the next time, and they know exactly what it is. So those are the kind of things I wanted to share with you as it relates to programming. Any questions about that?
I don't see any questions right now.
Okay. All right. And last but not least, I wanted to talk about the volunteer. So as you're looking, I know that we're always looking at ways to, how do we recruit? How do we find potential new volunteers to replace some of us that have been volunteering for so long and want to move on? I like to say, what is your list of blue chip recruits? There's so many coaches in men's and women's athletics that are always looking for that next talented player, so they have this great list of recruits. Well, kind of start your own list as well. As people move into the area, find out if they were an officer at a chapter, were they involved with other student organizations and they have some of those organizational skills. Do you have a volunteer form on your website that those who are interested in volunteering have a place in which to sign up to express that interest? When we talk about retaining our volunteers, how do you steward your volunteers? We steward our donors very well. We thank them, we invite them to special events, but what are we doing for our everyday volunteers, our chapter advisors, our Alumni Association officers? Do you have Volunteer Appreciation Day? Do you send a thank you note during Volunteer Appreciation Week, which takes place in April? What are different ways that you're just reaching out with a simple thank you? And one of the things we have found is that a handwritten note goes a long way versus an electronic email message. How are you capturing a quick impromptu video of the undergrads saying why a volunteer has made an impact in their life and thanking them, and then emailing that video to the volunteer during Volunteer Appreciation Week? And then recognizing and knowing when to sunset a volunteer. Whether you create a volunteer emeritus plaque and thanking them for their endless years of support. We know that sometimes other people will not volunteer because certain people are volunteering. Sometimes it's tough to make those decisions, but just having exit strategies for your volunteers is also important. So just wanted to share a few tips with that. And with that, ladies, leaves us 10 minutes before the webinar ends, and so I just wanted to open the floor to any questions that you may have or comments that you would like to share with the rest of the group.
So Craig, I have a question here from Kathy. She wants to know, how do you prepare your volunteers to sunset?
Part of it is, again, do you have limitations within your organizational structure? So is it a 2-year term, is it a 4-year term, or is it a maximum of 6? We have those within our sample constitutions that helps that. Sometimes if you're struggling with them in the role that they're in, can you transition them to a different position? one that maybe, is not as cumbersome. Sometimes we have volunteers that take on too much and then they don't get the job done. And so, sometimes it's hard for them to say no, but it's a lot easier for them to say yes if you present them with a new opportunity, or for me to say, oh my gosh, Beth, you are so organized, and I just am so appreciative. I have this project that I would like for you to take over because I know you'll do a great job with it. So in a way, they might see through all of that, but at least you're still showing the appreciation and trying to move them on to a different position.
And Nancy brings a suggestion just to piggyback on what you were saying, Craig. She suggests that you try to get the volunteers who are sunsetting to mentor some of the newer volunteers.
Oh, fantastic idea. Serve in a different capacity, absolutely.
So Leah has a question. What do you do when you have more volunteer requirements, for example, advisors and board spots, than you have available volunteers?
Great question. One of the things I think that I have seen is, is there, and a great example, we had a group that was struggling with volunteers, so we looked at other Greek organizations that used to be at Ohio State that no longer were, but still had alums living in the area, and reaching out to other Greek alums to serve on boards. That was one thing that worked. If it's, the difficult part that we really realize is that, some of the chapters are located in such remote areas and large alumni populations are so far away. One of the things I think that you might consider is, can your board operate from a different city, but maybe only coming to the chapter one or, twice a year? But if you, for example, so if we were struggling with the Kappa chapter at Athens and Ohio University, because it's a remote area, not a lot of people living in that area, but there's a huge alumni population in Columbus. Could the chapter's alumni group meet in Columbus on a regular basis, but then go into Athens, which is an hour-and-a-half drive, twice a year? Thinking about creative ways of tapping into people in other ways. The other thing I'm seeing is that a lot of our alumni volunteers that serve on our boards, especially the societies, is they are getting more out-of-state alums participating, and they're taking on roles that they can do from their home. They participate in board meetings via Skype or conference calls. But someone can be in charge of the newsletter and live in, Dallas, Texas, and still serve on the College of Vet Med alumni board. So those are some things I would offer as suggestions. Fantastic.
Kathy has another question. What if all your volunteers leave or drop out at the same time? How do you start?
You cry. I guess the question is, why did everybody drop at once? Was there, other issues that started? But one of the things that we're very fortunate, and I would encourage Kappa to do the same thing, is we have an Office of Volunteer Relations, and anybody can go in and post volunteer opportunities. So I think the other thing is creating a network within Kappa that allows folks to indicate their interest, or for an organization to post where they need help, because there's nothing worse than going to a volunteer site to volunteer and there's no volunteer opportunities. So that's one area that I would suggest on how to help recruit a little bit or get more people involved that way. And the other thing too is to send an invitation to an informational meeting to learn more about what does it mean to volunteer on the board. Some people are afraid of the responsibilities, and gosh knows we know there's so much paperwork and things that you have to do. How do you scale that back? How do you make it easier? How do you make it seem not so frightening? We are trying to start two groups here, our Asian American group and our Hispanic Latino. And we did a survey first. We gathered information from those who checked the box that said they wanted to volunteer, and we're inviting them to an informational meeting so they can learn more. So maybe it's a survey to the alums in the area, asking, would you like to serve on the board, committee, or serve as a mentor? And again, then invite them to an informational meeting after you've conducted the survey.
Fantastic. Maria has a question. How should different age groups be approached when it comes to encouraging dues-paying membership? How do we pitch it to the young alum versus the legacy alum?
All right. Well, for those of you who have dues, the first thing I'm going to ask you is, what do I get for it? So one of the things that especially our young alums are saying, you want me to send $25 to you for what? What do I get out of it? So whether it's on your website or whether it's in your materials, if you're going to have dues, make sure you have membership benefits. And those can be tangible benefits, and they can be what we call, pull on the heartstring benefits. You join because it's the right thing to do. But if you can't justify the rationalization to pay those dues, they're not going to pay them. So that's step number one. Step number two is show the value of that membership, and whether it's, again, a special invitation to an event that non-members don't get, whether it's special pricing for events. So if the Founders Day banquet is $25, but if you're a dues-paying member of the association, it's only $15. And so people see, oh, there's a benefit I'm getting right there. I'm saving $10 because I'm a member. Are you receiving an e-newsletter that no one else is getting that keeps you in the loop? So again, you have to have membership benefits if you're going to collect. And then I think the other thing too is you looked at the different audiences, making sure your programming is going to fit the needs of those different age groups. So again, it's the value of the membership. Oh, well, there's a special event that I'm being invited to because I'm in the the last decade of the cycle, and so this is a great thing that I want to go to. Anything else?
That looks like all the questions I have at the moment. So ladies, if you have any last questions, type them in now.
So the last thing I wanted to share with you is when we talk about ways to engage folks, this concept of an OHIO picture has just taken off at Ohio State. We have over 15,000 submissions of OHIO pictures from around the world. This is my favorite from when I was hosting an alumni tour to the French Polynesian Islands. But what kind of key, can do a picture with a bunch of Kappas holding a key? Is there a certain hashtag that hashtag Kappa for life that people should always be tagging when they're posting things on Facebook or social media as it relates to their Kappa experience? These are just simple ways, again, to make people feel good about their connection to Kappa, make them feel good about engaging with Kappa, and that Kappa is always on their mind when they're thinking about stuff like this. So you see my email information there. If there is anything else, any questions that come up, ideas that you want to run by me, or you just want to vent, I feel your pain, please send me an email at little.128@osu.edu. Indicate that you were part of the Kappa webinar, and we'll take it from there. And I can't thank you all enough for this incredible opportunity. I have had a blast spending the last hour with you, and I look forward to talking to you all in the future.
Thank you so much, Craig, for leading our sessions, and thank you to all of our participants today. Again, if you have any questions or comments about today's topic, you can email Craig directly, or you can email us at education@kkg.org. As we close the webinar, a survey will open on your screen, and you will be prompted to respond to just a few evaluation questions, which was, as Craig suggested earlier in the webinar. So please take a moment to share your thoughts on today's webinar, and your feedback will help us to shape future webinar events. And if you have any additional questions or comments whatsoever, again, please send an email to us at education@kkg.org. Thank you so much, ladies, and enjoy the rest of your evening.